Start away.
हाँ करण स्टार्ट कर दिया रिकॉर्डिंग.
Okay. So hello, hi everyone. Good evening. This is the training session for the Azure storage model, that is the unmanaged disk storage. So as you all are aware, we had a recent escalation on the progressive infrastructure regarding the one of the storage accounts on which we had left the unmanaged disk because the teammate we are having, we was not aware of the unmanaged disk module. Okay, so this is so on, as a corrective and preventive measures, so that this kind of scenarios won't happen again in future. So this is the purpose of the training. So moving ahead, like you all are aware with the disk part, right? Basically, if in case you need to run a virtual machine, you need to have a disk, right? So where your operating system, all your data will be hosted. For example, if you need to provision a virtual machine, you would need to have a disk. So on that disk, your operating system files and other data files will be located. So when we talk about the Azure cloud provider, so over here we are having two types of disks. The very first one is the managed disk and the second one is the unmanaged disk. Now, if you'll see the terms now, managed and unmanaged, you can clearly differentiate between what exactly these are the type of disks. So in the managed disk, what happens? The a disk that you will provision will be managed by the Azure, the IOPS, the size, and the maintenance of that disk will be operated by the Azure itself. They will take care all of this, like for just in case, you need to, like there's a throttling over the disk, there's a space issues. So all those factors will be managed by the Azure. But when we come to the unmanaged disk, what happens? These disks are created by the customer itself. Okay, and these are stored in the storage account itself. So what happens with the managed and unmanaged? Both the disks are stored in the storage account itself, but with the managed disk, those are the managed by the Azure only. But when it comes to the unmanaged disk, so these disks are located inside the storage account that is visible to us as a end customer. So the scope of responsibility lies with to the customer, that if in case the storage limit is about to close, or we are having the limits of IOPS. So all those things needs to be managed by the customer itself. So these are the main difference you will find between the managed and the unmanaged disk. The very first thing is the management. The management part lies with the customer himself. When we say management, for example, managing the disk part, and the second thing is managing the disk IOPS. As you know, whenever you provision a disk, you get a certain number of IOPS, right? So guys, any questions?
Yes, Karan bhai. Uh,
Hmm.
in this term disk, what do you mean by IOPS?
Hmm. See, this is a virtual machine, right? And this is a virtual machine. Here is a disk attached to this virtual machine, okay, in which your operating system will be hosted, right? The
Yes.
second thing is you got a data disk in which your data will be hosted. So at the moment, see, whenever you receive a request on your application or you make any changes, so where those requests will go to make any kind of changes, that disk is not located within the server, right? These disks are separately located. So in that case, what will happen? The virtual machine will send out the instructions to, like, for example, the application has requested to modify this file. So the same instructions will be sent out to this disk, okay, and to the, or for example, if it's related to the disk, so all the instructions will be sent out to this disk, and what will happen? It will perform the input and output operations. For example, if you need to write an Excel file, it will send the input operations over there. And what will happen? You will perform a certain write operations on your disk. Okay, so all the operations that you perform on your disk, okay, that comes under the IOPS. IOPS, when you say input and output operations. In the Azure portal, you got a option to monitor these figures. And the second thing is you can ask the Nagios monitoring tool team to configure the monitoring for the IOPS. So based on that, you can attract the IOPS. Is it clear to you?
Yes.
Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
Karan. I have a doubt as well.
Yes, Namrata.
Yeah, so in managed X, we don't need to create any storage account. Like it was all managed by Microsoft, but like in unmanaged disk, we need to create a storage account. Like then like we have to pay for storage account, like the person, the industry which is using it, any company.
Yeah, right. So what happens now with the Azure storage account now? The Azure storage account itself doesn't have any cost associated with it. But if in case you are provisioning any kind of a data, you are using it to store any data, then you will have to pay for it. If you just create a storage account, then it will not occur any cost.
Okay, like storage account does not cost anything to us.
Yeah. For example, now you created a storage account, and inside and what you did, you just keep it as it is, so it won't occur any costs. But once you created a storage account and then you created a container, and you just, for example, you just pasted a JPG file of 10 MB or 5 MB. So at that time, the
Okay,
5
like
MB
when
space.
we start to upload anything, that it will cost us.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's how
okay,
it
okay.
works. So if so in this example, if you'll see now, see this is my storage account, right? And this is
Yeah,
a container, and inside this you are having this OS disk here located as, and this is my data disk, and this is somehow internally connected through the Azure networking to this virtual machine,
yeah,
right? So this is the
yeah.
typical setup you will see. Now what problem lies with unmanaged disk is that the very first thing is you need to manage the space part, right? For example, mm, mm, in a storage account you will provision the n number of disk, right? But what will happen, a storage account has a limit of 20,000 IOPS. Okay. For example, you
Okay.
keep provisioning the multiple disk. At a certain time, it comes that you have provisioned 1,000 disk. So at that time, what will happen now? If in case you have over provisioned the disk, what will happen? The disk will start throttling. Throttling means, throttling means, let me show you an example. Just a minute. Just for the sake of example, let's say key this is a storage account. Okay, and these are the multiple disks that is hosted inside the storage account, right? And this is your multi virtual machines. Okay, and these disks are attached to this virtual machine. So right now, for let's consume that you have provisioned of 1,000 disks in a storage account. Okay, and when you total na, so the IOPS limit you are getting is somewhere around 22,000. But the problem here is the IOPS you have got for Azure is 20,000 IOPS. At that time, what do you think what will happen? This is the, you have provisioned this much IOPS, but what you have got Azure is only 20,000 IOPS. So what do you think what will happen? Namrita, Pallavi.
It won't like let it like there will be some alerts first of all, and like it will limit it, like the rest of the like it will throw some alert like you don't have like that much of IOPS left.
Pushpinder.
Yes, we in this case we have to means
No,
discard
no, no. What will happen? What will happen? I'm asking.
some
Like
alerts.
alerts like the the system like will start working slowly, like
Okay, good one. System will start working slowly. Okay.
like
And
yeah, there will be.
Pallavi,
Karan, we like same as Namrata. I have same answer.
see, so what will happen now? Suppose this is a virtual machine. Okay. And this is a DBVM.
Mm.
That is a disk associated with it. And this has it is requesting 300 to 400 IOPS. Okay. That means this is a database, right? And what happens with database? You will get continuous requests, right? Read and write requests.
Mm.
You know na? For example, you are having an application database. So what happens with database? So just in case na, if you just go, for example, you're going to Amazon.in, okay, and you just list some of the, so what it is doing? It will send the request to the the backend database and fetch the data for you, right?
Yes,
So
Karan.
even if you're not making any changes, so some customer is visiting your website, so in that case, there will be some read or write operations on your database. Right? So there will be certain read or write operations will be happening continuously on your disk, right? Because all the data operations will be handled on the disk part, right? Right?
Yes, Karan.
So at that time, what will happen now? When it will request here to further for the increased IOPS performance, as the disk won't have the enough IOPS available, so the input output wait for the resources will increase. At that time, what will happen? So whatever the job was to be supposed to be done in 1 second, for example, ideally it was happening in 1 second, so it will take them some time because the disk is not having the enough IOPS provision so that all the requests can be completed at the same time. So at that time, what will happen? The operating system and the compute resources will have to wait for the enough IO resources. And what will happen? The DB queries will stop responding. And after that, what will happen? Your DB will have a slow performance. Got it?
Mm.
So this is the problem with the management of unmanaged disk.
Okay.
And the good thing with Azure managed disk is you pay only for the part use. For example, you will provision a managed disk, right? You have provisioned a E10 disk, right? So what will happen with the E10 disk? Either you consume it 1 GB or 128 GB. You will be charged for the 128 GB. Okay, but what happens with the Azure Blob Storage? If you are using only 1 GB, you will be charged for the 1 GB part only.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we are we are all clear about the unmanaged disk, right? How it makes sense and how it is different from the managed disk. And and see, this is a general slide I have added in this disk training. Generally, what happens now? You guys are not able to identify like what is a persistent disk and what is a non-persistent disk. You understand the term volatile and non-volatile? Namrata, what is a volatile and non-volatile?
Volatile means we can like for as in normal term, volatile is like we can change the like state. How can I? Yeah, like
Okay,
we can
See,
change
see,
the
see.
state.
Yeah, RAM is volatile or non-volatile?
RAM is damn it, RAM is I guess volatile. I am not sure.
Pallavi.
RAM is, I think, non-volatile because we can change the size.
No,
Pushpinder.
volatile is you can
Wait,
change the
wait, wait,
state.
wait, 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 wait.
Volatile.
RAM is
Pushpinder.
volatile.
Yeah.
RAM is volatile. Volatile.
Volatile. Why?
Because we can change the size of RAM.
Yeah.
Okay. Volatile समझते हो volatile क्या होता है? So volatiles का मतलब होता है कि anything that can be disturbed. For example, my system right now is having 8 GB of RAM, right? So at that
Yeah.
time, if I reboot the system now, so it will forget whatever it was written on the 8 GB memory. So this is known as the volatile memory.
Yeah.
Got it? And if I talk about the ROM, that is my hard disk. So whatever data I'm going to save on my hard disk, it will be as it is even after the reboot. So my ROM is a non-volatile disk. Is it clear?
No, yes, sir.
Yes.
Are we clear enough, Pallavi, Shpinder?
Clear.
Yes.
Hmm.
Sir.
So the same, yeah. So the same happens with the temporary disk and the other disk you will see on the OS level. There are two type of disk from the point of view of volatile and non-volatile. The temporary disk you will see on the servers now. What happens with that? Once you reboot your server or you stop your server, so any data that persists on the local or the temporary disk will be automatically deleted after the reboot. So this is my non-persistent or the volatile memory. Guys, is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, Karan.
And the OS disk and the other data disk you will see, those disks are the persistent disks. It means that even after you're going to reboot your virtual machine now or stop your virtual machine, so in that case you won't lose the data. Okay.
Okay, Karan.
So for
But
example, now,
what is the use of temporary disk? Because if we if we keep any data in temporary disk after rebooting the server, it will get automatically erased now.
so the use case of this is now that there are whenever you see you have you would have heard of the cache memory. Have you heard of it? Cache
Yes.
memory. So what happens with cache memory? Whenever you are executing any of the programs, what happens? Your operating system needs to access multiple program files at a time, right? So at that time, what will happen? The operating system will have to go to that location. For example, inside the C program files, Adobe, for example, there's a software need to access for the Adobe. So the operating system would have to again and again visiting the Adobe file, right? So just to resolve that part, now what Adobe does, it will temporarily cache all those files in its cache memory. So with that, what happens? It is very fast for operating system to reach out those files. So this is how the operating system saves your time, and your files and the programs will be accessible faster. Okay, the same happens with the virtual machines. For example, your applications require low latency. Okay, and it has got a requirement that it will cache some of the programs. So on these kind of scenarios where application requires certain cache level requirements and low level latencies. Okay, on that kind of cases, the temporary disk is useful.
Okay.
पुष्पेंद्र क्लियर है?
हाँ जी भाई.
ऐसे ही होता है ना. कभी तुम देखा हो कैशे कैसे फिल होता है मेरा जो मैं लोकल जैसे तुम लैपटॉप चलाते हो कैशे मेमोरी डिलीट करते हो ना हर 5-6 महीने फिल हो जाती है वो. हाँ, तो वो देखा ना क्यों फिल होती है. समझ में आ गया लॉजिक क्या उसके पीछे उसके फिल होने का कि वो कैशे क्यों बढ़ जाता है.
हाँ करें.
ठीक है, तो अभी क्लियर है ना कि कैसे आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं और जरूरत क्या है टेम्पररी डिस्क और persistent और नॉन persistent डिस्क की.
हाँ जी भाई.
हाँ, तो सबसे सिंपल तरीका है टेम्पररी डिस्क. द सिंपलेस्ट वे टू आइडेंटिफाई द persistent and non persistent disk is the persistent disk will always be visible on the portal itself, but the non persistent disk won't be available on the Azure portal.
Okay.
If you will see now, for example, you have created a virtual machine, so you will see that the drive C and this drive F will be visible to the on the Azure portal, but this temporary storage D won't be available on the Azure portal. So if in case you need to find out which is one is a temporary disk, you can find out this way. Okay.
Okay.
So now how you can create the virtual machine with the unmanaged disk? Once you are going to create the virtual machine, so on the storage section where you got the option to define the OS disk type SKU, whether it's going to be a standard hard disk, premium hard disk, or the standard SSD. You can just uncheck the box, and what it will do, it will provision my virtual machine with the unmanaged disk. Okay. So this is how it will work. Now, where you can find out the your disk. So those disks won't be visible to you inside the disk management console in the Azure portal. There's a disk management console. If you will just go to the Azure portal and in the search box you will type, so you will get all the managed disk available, but you won't see any of the managed disk. So if in case you want to view your unmanaged disk, what you need to do, you just need to go to the virtual machine inside the disk, click on disk. Over there you will be having the all the disk associated with it. So just need to click on the first part, that is my disk name. So you will have a page like this. So you will have over here, you will have the name of the disk, and just behind the name and the details of and the performance details of the disk, you will have a this kind of a URL. That will be something as something to that prog adc storage .blob.co.windows.net slash this and your VHD address. So how this works, the VHD URL would be https your storage account name .fqdn, that is a default fqdn that will be used for all of the storage account, and after that it will have a slash forwarded by a container name. For example, your disk is inside a container XYZ. So you will be having kind of a name XYZ. Right now here the container name is AD issue reconfiguration hyphen setup. Inside this you are having your disk .vhd disk. Okay. Or so whatever your disk you will be having now, so this will have a kind of a extension name .vhd.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, bhai.
Mm, let me show you one more thing. See, this is one of the unmanaged disk, right? This is my storage account name. Let me just copy this. It is inside the AD issue reconfiguration setup.
Container.
Let me go to the container. This is my container, right? This is the disk, right?
Yes.
And right now, see, and the second thing raises is, for example, how you will differentiate if, for example, if this is the a disk in use or it is simply a disk that is located in Azure system. So here, if you will need to check the lease state, if it is in free state, it means it is not associated to any of the virtual machine. If it is in a lease state, it means it is attached to one of the virtual machines.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
clear, guys?
Clear.
Yes, Karan.
Clear? And for this, in case someone asks you to backup, just copy it, copy the virtual machine disk, and you can just create another container with the operating system name hyphen date, and you can just paste the disk,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
I believe we are pretty much clear with that. Namrata, you are having any questions?
No, not quite.
Okay.
भाई जो स्लाइड खोली हुई थी अभी एक बार जाना उसको 3rd या 4th पेज पर। इससे आगे आना। नहीं, सेकंड वाले पर। हाँ, इसमें हमें ये कैसे पता चलेगा कि मतलब जैसे आपने बताया था कि हमारी ये वाली डिस्क इतने आईओप्स वो कर रही है, मतलब उसके पास इतने इनफ आईओप्स हैं, तो हमें ये कैसे पता चलेगा इस वाली डिस्क के पास इतने आईओप्स हैं इनपुट आउटपुट। अच्छा,
You got your answer?
Yeah.
यस।
Got it?
यस।
Any other questions?
No, Karan.
Guys,
No,
No.
Karan.
okay. So right now, so if you can conclude, so the conclusion here, right, from considering the running the production workload, for that, the ideal disk would be the managed disk. The reason here is you don't need to manage the IOPS, you don't need to manage the overhead of managing the multiple storage accounts, you need not to manage the space part. So with that, you got all the facility with this managed disk. So from the perspective of running the production environment, you should always consider using the managed disk. And when you're having kind of a testing environment, you are having a shortness on your budget and you're having costing issues. Okay, so in that case, you should consider running your workload on the unmanaged disk. However, considering from the point of high availability and a much better in performance, always recommended solution would be the managed disk. Okay.
Karan, yeah, I have
Oh.
a doubt. Like, what kind of common requirements by customer, like what unmanaged is? Like, what kind of common, like they ask for, like I have to migrate this, or what kind of things they require us to do? Request.
See, generally, customers don't use managed disk right now. Earlier, these were the options to save cost. But right now, considering the high availability, so customers generally don't, the latest customer don't go with the unmanaged disk. So that's why I have concluded stating that for the production workloads and the high availability, it is always recommended to use the unmanaged disk, where you are having certain limitations on the costing part, and you can manage certain downtime, and you don't have any issues if your VM goes down. Okay, so in that case, you can provision the unmanaged disk. However, it is always recommended to use the managed disk.
Managed. Yeah.
Because you don't have the overhead to manage the IOPS and other things and the storage account, multiple storage accounts, right? And the second thing is a single virtual machine gives you the SLA of 99.99 what it was. There's something SLA of 99 I believe it is 95 something. Okay, so a single virtual machine gives you the SLA of 99.95% only when you are using a managed disk. Okay, and that disk should be the premium disk. Okay. You guys understand the SLA part, right?
Yes, Karan.
क्या होता है बताना कोई? कौन इस कॉल पे अभी प्लीज बता दो मुझे.
ये सर्विस लेवल एग्रीमेंट होता है भाई एक तरीके का। अब जैसे हम कस्टमर का मतलब कोई प्रोडक्शन सर्वर चल रहा है और मतलब माइक्रोसॉफ्ट ने कोई अपना पैच अपडेट किए या कुछ भी मतलब उनका कुछ पावर फेलियर हुआ, रैक फेलियर हुआ, तो उस केस में अगर हमने मैनेज ले रखी है और हमने अवेलेबिलिटी सेट मतलब लगा रखा है मैनेज डिस्क क्रिएट करते टाइम पर, तो हमारा 99.95 या 99.99 जो भी हमारा SLA उस टाइम पर मतलब चल रहा है वो मतलब हमें वर्चुअल मशीन ऐसे एज इट इज मिल जाएगी आफ्टर उनके पावर फेलियर रैक फेलियर। बट अगर हमारी अनमैनेज डिस्क है तो हम उसको तो हम कस्टमर खुद मैनेज करता है, तो उस केस में नहीं मिलेगा, हमें वो SLA नहीं मिलेगा।
तो देखो, लेट मी एक्सप्लेन SLA. So हाँ, so SLA is the service level agreement that you have with the vendor whenever you sign a contract. For example, when you sign up for a Azure virtual machine, Azure promise you, if you are going with the virtual machine along with the disk of premium managed disk storage, okay, so you will get the SLA of 99.95%. So 99.95%, if your virtual machine is running for a year, so in a year, the 99.95% the virtual machine will be up and running guaranteed.
So Karan, is there any difference like SLA percentage by tier to tier wise? Like for premium, this is this, and for standard.
No. If you will provision the hard disk na, so Azure will not give you the SLA. That is the term and condition you here. Okay.
Yes, Karan.
So with the virtual machine having a premium disk, you will get a I'm not sure, you can check this after this call, like what is the actual, but what I can recall is it is 99.95%. So it means in a year your virtual machine will be 99.95% up.
Okay.
And you understand 99.95 is really a great value, right?
Yes.
And what happens? And the second thing comes is what happens if Azure won't be able to, and you can prove that Azure is not able to satisfy the your SLA targets. So you can ask Azure for the claim. If the SLA is above 95%, Azure will give you 20% credit of the total monthly or the yearly billing. For example, you analyze the yearly uptime, right? And you came to know that Azure has not fulfilled your request. So at that time, you can ask Azure if it is 95% of the year. So Azure will give you 20% credit. If it is below 95%, Azure will give you 100% of the credit. So it means your all the bill that was generated for the whole year, it will be reimbursed by the Azure.
Okay.
Got it? So this is how the costing and SLA part works. However, when we check this SLA part, generally we do this on the monthly to monthly basis. Okay. And air was an example just for the sake of reference.
तो भाई ऐसे कौन सा केस आएगा जिसमें वो 0.05% हमें SLA नहीं दे पाएगा माइक्रोसॉफ्ट?
0.05 तो देगा नहीं, उसने पहले ही बोल दिया ना कि 99.95% मेरे को अप टाइम देगा. अप टाइम समझते हो ना? यू अंडरस्टैंड अप टाइम, राइट? कि मेरी मशीन एक इन अ मंथ या फिर इन अ ईयर में कितने टाइम के लिए अप थी, दैट इज माय अप टाइम, राइट? सो 99.95% वो मेरा आप रहेगा. अभी कैलकुलेट कर लेते हैं. एक मंथ में कितने घंटे होते हैं? 99.95 यानी कि 0. 740 में ना, एक मंथ में अगर 740 घंटे होते हैं तो मेरी मशीन ना 739 घंटे ऑनलाइन रहेगी. ये एज्योर मुझे गारंटी देता है. समझ गए? अभी क्लियर हुआ ना? अभी समझ गए ना मैं 99.95% SLA क्या मतलब होता है? माय बैड, इट इज सिंगल इट इज 99.9%. ठीक है, तो अभी देख लेते हैं 99.9% कितना है. देखो कम हो गया. 740 में से मेरी मशीन जो है 739 आवर अप रहेगी, तो ये अच्छी वैल्यू बेकार वैल्यू है?
अच्छी वैल्यू है।
अच्छी वैल्यू है ना। सो इट मीन्स कि 739 आवर्स तो मेरी मशीन आप ही रहेगी, उसमें से हो सकता है 26 यानी कि 25 यानी कि 75%, यानी कि ये मेरी मशीन जो आप डाउन रह सकती है 45 मिनट। यानी कि अजूरी क्लेम करता है कि अगर आप वर्चुअल मशीन यूज कर रहे हो और उसके साथ अपने प्रीमियम डिस्क ली हुई है, तो आपकी ये मशीन एक महीने में 45 मिनट डाउन रहेगी, 45 मिनट तक डाउन रह सकती है, उससे ज्यादा नहीं रहेगी, राइट? बट इट अब तुम्हें ईयरली बेसिस पे निकालनी है तो कैसे करोगे? 365 डे होते हैं इंटू 24, 8760 हो गया, राइट? यानी कि मेरे मंथ में कितने घंटे हो गए, सॉरी ईयर में इतने घंटे हो गए, राइट? अब मुझे कितना है, मतलब मेरी मशीन चल रही है इतने पे, वेट देखो कितना हो गया, दिखा? देखो कितने घंटे का, 9 घंटे का फर्क आ गया, यानी कि साल में मेरी मशीन कितना डाउन रह सकती है? 9 घंटे के आसपास।
9 घंटे।
तो अभी क्लियर है?
हाँ हाँ करण क्लियर है।
ठीक है। तो ये तुम्हारा टास्क है इस के पास। तो तुम्हें करना है क्रिएट एन एज़्योर पावरशेल स्क्रिप्ट टू स्वैप ओएस डिस्क। जैसे हम जनरली मैनेज डिस्क सिस्टम स्वैप डिस्क करते हैं ना पोर्टल से, करते नहीं करते हैं?
करते हैं।
ये सी है मेरा, ठीक है। ये ठीक है, वहां पे तुम्हें ऑप्शन होता है, बट इसे अगर करना पड़े तो स्वैप कैसे करोगे?
ठीक है। ओएस डिस्क में
है कोई
ना,
ऑप्शन?
मैनेज में ना। हेलो
अनमैनेज्ड में।
ये ऑलरेडी अनमैनेज है ना करण?
हाँ अनमैनेज में तो बोल रहा हूँ मैं। देखो मैनेज में तो तुम्हारे पास ऑप्शन होता है यहाँ पे करने का,
ठीक है,
राइट?
अनमैनेज का देखना पड़ेगा।
ऑप्शन सेलेक्ट होता है, स्वैप डिस्क करके यहाँ पे लिखवाता है।
हाँ है ना। अब जो हमारी डिस्क है ये अनमैनेज डिस्क है, तो अनमैनेज डिस्क को कैसे स्वैप करोगे? मान लो किसी ने एक्टिविटी कर रहे हो, ठीक है, और फंस गए, तो कैसे अनमैनेज डिस्क को चेंज करोगे?
ठीक है।
तो हमें
किया है ना
मतलब
कभी स्वैप डिस्क वाला किया हुआ है ना?
नहीं, मैंने नहीं किया अभी तक।
ओके ठीक है, पहले भी किया हुआ है शमीर?
मैंने भी नहीं किया है ये स्वैप डिस्क वाला टास्क कभी।
तो कभी तुम्हारा बैकअप वो सीएवीए पैचिंग को इशू नहीं आया कभी कोई?
तो अनमैनेज के साथ नहीं हुआ है ना?
अरे मैनेज के संग हुआ नहीं हुआ ये बताओ ना।
नहीं, जब भी हुआ है तो तब तो कमेंट था ही।
ये ऑप्शन दिख रहा
तो
है ये?
यहाँ हाँ, तो मैनेज में तो पता है, अनमैनेज के साथ बोल रही हूँ। हाँ कोमल, आवाज आ रही है?
यहाँ दिख रहा है? ये किया हुआ ना, ये यूज किया, किसने यूज किया ये बता दो।
नहीं यूज नहीं किया, बस पता है कि होता है।
शमीर?
शमीर तो है ही नहीं।
अच्छा शमीर है ही नहीं, ठीक है। देखो जो कभी भी ना, जैसे तुम्हारी ओएस डिस्क में इशू आ जाए ना, और तुमने बैकअप ले रखा हो स्नैपशॉट, तो स्नैपशॉट से डिस्क बनाओ और तुम यहाँ से ना अब कभी भी अपने ओएस डिस्क को स्वैप कर सकते हो। तो वो क्या, जो मेरा पुरानी वाली डिस्क होगी वो एज इट इज आ जाएगी वर्किंग स्टेट में, ठीक है। अब ये करने के लिए यहाँ पे तो सिंपल ऑप्शन होता है, बट अनमैनेज डिस्क होगी तो कैसे करोगे? उसके लिए तुम्हें स्क्रिप्ट बनानी है,
ठीक है।
ठीक है, पावरशेल स्क्रिप्ट। दूसरा मेरा टास्क है माइग्रेट अनमैनेज डिस्क टू मैनेज डिस्क। मेरी अनमैनेज डिस्क को मैनेज डिस्क में कैसे माइग्रेट करते हैं वो तुम्हें करना है,
ठीक है।
ठीक है?
हम्म।
ठीक है गाइस।